My name is Antonia, and I'm 71 years old. Until a few months ago, I believed I truly knew my daughter, Angela. But that belief shattered one quiet morning when life reminded me how cruel people can become when money and greed take over their hearts. 6 months earlier, my husband Robert passed away suddenly. We were having breakfast together like always, coffee with cream, toast, and laughter. He looked at me with those kind eyes and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were the last words he ever spoke to me. A few minutes later, he collapsed from a heart attack, leaving me alone after 45 years of marriage. The days after his death were a blur of sadness, arrangements, and silence. I thought I was lucky to have Angela by my side. She visited me often, helped with paperwork, and even told me to go for regular checkups. She would say, "Mom, now that Dad is gone, you have to take better care of yourself." I smiled each time, thinking she was just being loving. But later, I learned her kindness had a different purpose: convenience. Robert and I had a small beach house, our little paradise built with years of effort. We bought it when Angela was 15. Every summer we went there, birthdays, holidays, and family dinners. It was full of laughter, songs, and dreams. That house wasn't just a building. It was our memory box. But to Angela, it became just a piece of property, something she could sell. And then there was Robert's old pickup truck, his pride and joy. He cleaned it every Sunday, parked it under the same tree, and never let anyone drive it but himself. Even after his death, the scent of his cologne stayed on the seats. That truck was a piece of him, the last one I had left. One day, I was sitting in the clinic waiting for my name to be called for a routine checkup. My phone rang. It was Angela. Her tone was different this time, cold and businesslike. "Mom," she said, "I just wanted to let you know we sold the beach house and Dad's truck. The money will help us with a new investment. Don't worry, we'll give you your share soon." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I sat frozen, clutching the phone as if it might change her words. "My share?" I finally whispered. "Yes, Mom, we thought it was fair to give you 30%. You don't need the house now, right? You live alone. We'll help you find a smaller place when we return from Europe." Then she hung up. I sat there surrounded by strangers in that waiting room, and for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something inside me changed. A strange calm took over. Because suddenly I remembered something that Robert had said 3 days before he died. He had handed me a brown envelope and said softly, "Keep this safe, Antonia. If anything ever happens to me, open it when you feel ready. Not before." I had tucked it away in my dresser and forgotten about it. But now those words echoed in my mind like a whisper from beyond the grave. That evening, when I returned home, I went straight to the drawer. There it was, the envelope untouched. My hands trembled as I held it. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I sat on our old bed, staring at the shadows forming on the walls. It was getting dark, and the house felt both empty and alive at the same time, as if Robert was still there, watching me. The doctor's words replayed in my head, but I barely heard them. All I could think about was that envelope and the strange calmness that had replaced my grief. Angela had taken everything that reminded me of Robert, or so she thought. But maybe, just maybe, Robert had one final surprise waiting for me, a secret that could change everything. That night, I placed the envelope on my bedside table and whispered, "All right, my love. I'm ready now." The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The envelope lay beside me on the table, untouched, glowing softly in the morning light. For a few minutes, I just stared at it, afraid and curious at the same time. Then I took a deep breath and opened it. Inside were several papers neatly arranged, property deeds, bank statements, and a handwritten letter from Robert. The moment I saw his familiar handwriting, my eyes filled with tears. "My dearest Antonia, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for keeping secrets, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in ways that would keep you safe. You are not poor, my love. You never were. You own more than you can imagine," I gasped. I kept reading, hands shaking. Robert explained that he had quietly invested money in several properties, not just the beach house. He mentioned 6 other properties, shares in small businesses, and even the apartment building where Angela and her husband Edward lived. Robert had created a company in secret, a company under my name, to manage it all. Every sacrifice we made, Every penny we saved had multiplied over the years. He wrote, "I didn't want Angela to know. If she ever discovered our wealth, her heart might change. I wanted her to love us for who we are, not for what we have." I sat there, unable to breathe. Angela had abandoned me, believing I had nothing, but in truth, she had turned her back on everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house, touching the old furniture, the family photos, the memories. Every corner whispered Robert's presence. The picture of Angela as a child caught my eye, 5 years old, sitting on her father's lap, smiling like an angel. Where had that little girl gone? When had she become so cold, so distant? Early next morning, the phone rang. It was Angela again. Her voice was softer this time, pretending to be caring. "Mom, how are you feeling today?" "I'm fine, dear," I replied quietly. She sighed. "Good. I wanted to tell you we transferred your part of the money from the house sale. It's not much, but it should help you live for a while." "My part?" I asked calmly. "Yes, Mom, 30%. We need the rest for our investment in Europe. Edward says it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I smiled bitterly. "When are you leaving?" "This afternoon. Don't worry, we'll call once we settle there. And when we come back, we'll help you find a smaller apartment." "Of course," I said. "Have a safe trip." "Oh, Mom," she said sweetly. "You've always been so understanding. Love you." And she hung up. For a few seconds, I stared at the silent phone. Then, I laughed. A deep, bitter laugh I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't joy. It was the sound of disbelief, of realizing how easily love can vanish when greed walks in. That afternoon, I watched through my window as Angela and Edward loaded their shiny suitcases into a taxi. They looked happy, excited even. They didn't look back, not once, not even to wave goodbye to the mother who had given them everything. As the taxi disappeared, I felt no tears, only calm. I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and spread Robert's documents on the table. I realized I had choices, many choices. I could fight back, reclaim what was mine. But then, a different idea began to form in my mind, one that was slower, quieter, and far more powerful. I decided to call Mr. Peterson, Robert's old lawyer. He had attended the funeral and told me to contact him if I ever needed help. "Mrs. Brooks," he said when I called. "It's good to hear from you. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine, Mr. Peterson. But I've found some documents from Robert, and I need to understand them." "Of course. Come to my office tomorrow morning," he replied. That night, for the first time since Robert's death, I slept peacefully. In my dream, I saw him sitting in his favorite chair, reading his newspaper. He looked up at me, smiled, and said softly, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stand up for yourself." When I woke up, the sadness was gone. It was replaced by something stronger, determination. Robert had left me more than money. He had left me a plan, and now I was ready to finish what he started. The morning sunlight fell softly through my window as I got ready to visit Mr. Peterson's office. For the first time in months, I felt alive, nervous, but alive. I wore my favorite wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time, a woman with strength in her eyes. Mr. Peterson's office was in an old building downtown, with shiny marble floors and tall glass windows. He greeted me kindly. "Mrs. Brooks, it's good to see you again." "Thank you, Mr. Peterson," I said, handing him the envelope. "These are the papers Robert left me. I need to know what they mean." He adjusted his glasses and began to read. At first, his face showed calm curiosity. Then his expression changed, surprise, disbelief, and finally admiration. "Mrs. Brooks," he said slowly, "your husband was a very intelligent man. According to these documents, you are the sole owner of several valuable properties and investments." "I know," I said quietly. "But I need to know how much control I have, and what I can legally do." He nodded. "Everything appears legitimate. The deeds are registered under your husband's company, which now belongs entirely to you. That means you have full ownership of all assets, including the beach house, the apartment building, and multiple accounts. He paused for a moment. But I must tell you something else. The sale of your beach house by your daughter was completely illegal. She had no authority to sell it. I felt a cold wave run through me. So I can get it back? Yes, he said firmly. We can reverse the sale and restore it to your name. You can also take legal action against your daughter for fraud. I thought for a moment. No, Mr. Peterson, I said softly. I don't want to punish her, not yet. I just want things back quietly. Can you handle it without her knowing? He raised an eyebrow but nodded. If that's what you wish, Mrs. Brooks, it will take some time, but it can be done. Good, I said. And please, keep everything confidential. No one, not even Angela, should know that I'm behind this. As I left his office, I felt lighter, almost free. The city around me looked different now. People hurried to their jobs, cars honked, children ran after school buses. Life was moving forward, and so was I. But deep inside, I carried a new secret. A quiet plan to reclaim not just my property, but my dignity. The following weeks were strange but peaceful. On the outside, I was still the poor widow everyone pitied. Neighbors stopped by to offer sympathy, food, and advice. Aurora, my kind neighbor, came over one afternoon as I watered my plants. Antonia, she said softly, is it true that Angela went to Europe and left you alone? Yes, I replied calmly. They had some business plans there, she sighed. Oh dear, I hope you're managing. If you ever need anything, please let me know. I smiled. You're very kind, Aurora. I'll be all right. What they didn't know was that while they pitied me, I was slowly regaining everything that had been taken from me. Mr. Peterson worked efficiently, calling me every few days with updates. Within weeks, he confirmed that the beach house sale had been officially canceled. The buyers were innocent, he explained. They got their money back, and the property is now legally yours again. I thanked him, and for the first time in months, tears filled my eyes, not of pain, but of gratitude. Robert's dream house was mine again, but something inside me still hurt. Angela had lied to me, cheated me, and abandoned me as if I meant nothing. And yet she was still my daughter. That thought made my heart ache more than any betrayal. A few days later, I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus, the same route Robert and I had taken so many times. When I arrived, my heart tightened. The cream-colored house stood quietly under the sun, facing the sea just like before. The porch, the steps, even the flowers looked the same. I sat across the street for a long time, remembering summers filled with laughter. Robert grilling fish, Angela building sandcastles, me singing along with the waves. All those memories, and she had sold them away for money. An older man walked out of the house and noticed me sitting there. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" he asked kindly. "Yes," I said softly. "Just remembering someone I loved." He smiled sadly. "We were told the old owner had health problems and had to sell quickly." "A sad story, really." "Yes," I whispered. "A very sad story indeed." When I returned home that evening, my heart felt heavy, not because of the lost years, but because I finally understood something. Angela didn't just betray me for money. She had rewritten our history to justify her actions, painting me as a weak, sick old woman who couldn't manage her life. That night, I stood by the window and looked up at the stars. Robert used to say the stars were souls watching over us. If that was true, then I knew he was up there, proud of me for standing tall again. "Don't worry, my love," I whispered. "I'm not done yet. She took everything I loved. Now it's time she learns what love really costs." The next morning, I called Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson," I said softly, "I need your help with one more thing. I want Robert's truck back." He hesitated for a moment. "That might be more complicated, Mrs. Brooks. According to the papers, your daughter sold the truck under a power of attorney, one that you signed." I frowned. "That's impossible. I would never give her permission to sell it." He paused again. "I believe you didn't know what you were signing. Right after your husband passed away, your daughter brought some papers, remember? And then it hit me. I remembered that day clearly. Angela sitting at my kitchen table, telling me those documents were for the funeral process and inheritance papers. I had been so broken, so lost in my grief that I hadn't read a single line. I just signed wherever she told me to. "Oh, Angela," I whispered to myself. "You planned this even when your father's body was barely cold." Mr. Peterson's voice brought me back. Mrs. Brooks, we can still try to get the truck back. It was sold illegally under emotional manipulation, but it might take some time. I'll wait, I said. I want everything that was his and mine back where it belongs. The next few weeks passed quietly, but I was no longer the same woman. On the outside, I was still the old widow who needed help from her neighbors. But inside, I was building something, a plan, a calm, careful revenge. Every morning, I would have breakfast at the same table Robert and I had shared for years. Then I would take long walks around the neighborhood. People greeted me kindly but with pity, the kind of sympathy they reserve for someone who's lost everything. Little did they know, I was far from broken. Aurora came again one afternoon. "Antonia, my dear," she said while handing me a basket of fresh bread. "You've been so brave. Angela really left for Europe, didn't she?" "Yes," I replied with a small smile. "They'll be gone for a few months, maybe more." She shook her head. "I just can't believe she'd go off like that and leave you alone. Robert would never forgive her." I smiled faintly. "Maybe he won't have to." Behind that smile was a secret growing stronger each day. Mr. Peterson kept me updated. The beach house had been completely returned to my ownership, and he was working on the building where Angela and Edward lived. I wanted it all in my name again. Not for pride, but for justice. One Wednesday morning, Mr. Peterson called with good news. "Mrs. Brooks, I have successfully restored your control over all the properties under Robert's company. You now officially own everything, including the building where your daughter used to live." I felt a quiet satisfaction. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson. And the truck?" "That one took some digging," he said. "But I found it. The man who bought it turned out to be someone I know. He agreed to return it in exchange for a small payment." I couldn't hold back my tears. "Please tell him thank you," I said. "That truck means more to me than money ever will." After the call, I sat down with my cup of tea thinking about Angela. She had been gone for 3 weeks now. Not a call, not even a message. It was as if I didn't exist. But soon I knew she would return him, and when she did, she would find out who truly owned everything she once called hers. That night, as I looked through Robert's documents, I noticed something I had never seen before. A small line written at the bottom of one paper in his handwriting. It read, "When the time comes, trust your heart, not your pain." It made me stop for a moment. Maybe Robert had known this day would come, that one day I would face the choice between revenge and forgiveness. But forgiveness couldn't come yet, not while the wound was still bleeding. A few days later, my neighbor Aurora came rushing to my door, her face pale with gossip and worry. "Antonia, have you heard? Edward's in trouble with the bank. My brother-in-law works there. They're saying he took loans using the apartment as collateral, but the apartment isn't even his." I couldn't help but smile. "Really? That sounds serious." "Oh, it is. They say Angela doesn't know anything. She might have to come back from Europe to fix the mess." "Well," I said calmly, "maybe it's time she faced the truth." That evening, as I stood by the window, the sunset painting the sky orange and gold, I whispered, "Robert, your plan is working," because I realized then I didn't have to chase revenge. Life was already teaching Angela the same lesson she had once forced upon me. And soon she would come home, broken, desperate, and alone. But this time she wouldn't find the mother she once controlled. She would find the woman her father built, quiet, strong, and unshakable. The phone rang early in the morning. I picked it up, and it was Mr. Peterson. His voice was calm but carried something serious. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "I thought you should know. Your daughter just arrived back in the country. She's at the airport." "Alone." "Alone?" I asked. "Where's Edward? It seems he stayed behind in Europe." "There are rumors of a fight between them." I took a slow breath. "Send the letter," I said softly. "The eviction notice?" "Yes, deliver it to her apartment. She needs to face reality now." He hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure, Mrs. Brooks? She's your daughter." "Yes," I replied coldly. "And she decided I wasn't her mother when she sold my home behind my back." When I hung up, my hands were steady. For months, I had been preparing for this moment. It wasn't about punishing her anymore. It was about balance. She had thrown me out of my own life. Now she would understand what that truly felt like. Later that day, my neighbor Aurora came rushing in, her face full of curiosity. "Antonia, did you hear? Angela's back. My cousin saw her last night. She looked terrible, thin, pale, and exhausted. I tried to hide my reaction. Really? That's sad to hear. She was carrying just one suitcase, Aurora continued. And the strangest thing? She didn't even have her apartment keys. The doorman had to let her in with the spare copy, so Edward had left her with nothing, not even the keys to her own home. I felt a strange mix of sadness and satisfaction. Life has its own ways of teaching lessons, I said quietly. Aurora nodded. Well, she'll need you now more than ever. I didn't answer. Because Aurora didn't know. I had already sent my daughter an eviction notice. The next morning, the phone rang again. It was Mr. Peterson. Mrs. Brooks, the letter has been delivered. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it personally. Perfect, I said. How long does she have? 30 days, as per law. Good. Let's see how she reacts. That evening, as the house grew quiet, the phone rang once more. I already knew who it was before I answered. Mom! Angela's voice trembled on the line. I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, sweetheart, I said calmly. How was your trip? Mom, please, this isn't about that. I just got a strange letter. It says I have to move out of my apartment in 30 days. It can't be true. There must be a mistake. Who sent it? I asked, pretending to sound confused. Some company I've never heard of. Robert Holdings, Inc. Do you know them? Hearing Robert's name nearly broke me. He had chosen it for a reason? Poetic justice. No, honey, I said softly. I've never heard that name before. Mom, please, I don't know what to do, she cried. Edward left me. He's gone. He took the money and now this? I'm scared. For a moment, I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered that day, her cold voice on the phone, telling me she had sold my house, my memories, my life. So I said gently, I'm so sorry, Angela. Do you want to come over? We can talk? Yes, she sobbed. I need you, Mom. I don't have anyone else. When I hung up, I stood in front of the mirror again. I tied my hair neatly, wore a simple gray dress, and fixed my expression. I needed to look exactly how she remembered me. Soft, fragile, harmless. But inside, I was steady as stone. An hour later, Angela arrived. When I opened the door, she looked broken. Her once perfect hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes swollen from crying. For a moment, she looked like the frightened little girl who used to hide behind me during storms. Mom, she whispered. I'm so sorry, I smiled faintly. Come in, dear. Sit down. I poured her coffee, just like I used to when she visited after school. But this time, the silence between us was heavy. She finally spoke. I treated you terribly, Mom. I said awful things. I don't deserve your kindness. I looked at her quietly. What happened with Edward? Her lips trembled. He left me. For someone else. There was no business deal. It was all lies. He took the money, my trust, everything. For a moment, I wanted to hug her, but I didn't. Instead, I asked gently, So what will you do now? I don't know, she whispered. I don't even have a place to stay. Mom, can I please stay here, just for a while until I get back on my feet? There it was, and the moment I had been waiting for. After all her arrogance, all her cruelty, she was now standing at my door, begging for the same love she had once thrown away. I took a deep breath and smiled kindly. Of course, honey. This will always be your home. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Really, after everything I did? You are my daughter, I said softly. And that will never change. She burst into tears and hugged me tightly. But unlike before, my embrace wasn't filled with blind love. It was calm, controlled, because now I was the one leading the story. As she cried in my arms, I whispered in my mind, You wanted freedom, Angela. Now you'll learn what it costs. That night, after Angela fell asleep in her old room, I sat alone by the window. The soft sound of waves outside reminded me of the days when Robert and I would sit in silence, sharing one blanket and one dream. Now, that dream had been broken and rebuilt, differently, painfully, but stronger. I dialed Mr. Peterson's number. It's time, I said softly. I understand, Mrs. Brooks. Are you sure you want to go through with it? Yes, I replied. It's not revenge anymore. It's closure. He didn't ask more. He knew. The next morning, he came to the house with a small envelope. Inside were the final ownership papers. Everything Robert had left me, fully restored under my name. It was proof that I had reclaimed not just our property, but my voice. Angela was in the kitchen, making coffee when I walked in. Mom, she said shyly, Thank you for letting me stay. I'll look for a job soon and try to fix my mistakes. I smiled gently. That's good, Angela. I'm happy you're trying. I placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward her. She frowned. What's this? Read it, I said. Her hands trembled as she opened it. When she saw the company name, Robert Holdings Inc., her eyes widened. Mom! This is the same company that sent me the eviction notice. Yes, I said quietly. It belongs to me. She looked at me confused. I don't understand. How can it be yours? I met her eyes and spoke calmly, each word steady like a heartbeat. Because your father left everything to me. The beach house, the apartment building, the savings, everything. And while you thought I had nothing, I was the owner of it all. Her face turned pale. You knew? Yes, I found out after you sold the beach house and his truck. You tricked me into signing those papers, remember? Tears began to fall down her cheeks. Mom, please, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. Edward said we needed money. I thought we were helping you. I stayed silent. For a moment, all I saw was the little girl who once ran to me with scraped knees, asking for comfort. But that little girl was gone, replaced by a woman who had let greed take over her love. Angela, I said softly, I'm not angry anymore. I just want you to understand something. You can lose money, you can lose things, but when you lose trust, that's something you may never get back. She covered her face and cried. I know, Mom, I've lost everything. Edward took my money, my name, my peace. I deserve this. I walked over and placed my hand on her shoulder. No one deserves pain forever, I said gently. But forgiveness must be earned. She looked up, confused. What do you mean? I smiled faintly. I'll give you a choice. You can stay here with me, help around the house, and rebuild your life slowly. Or you can walk away, and whatever path you choose after that will be entirely yours. Angela's lip quivered. You'd really let me stay? After all I've done? Yes, I said, because your father wouldn't want me to throw you away. He believed people could change, even after they've fallen. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I'll stay, she whispered. I'll make things right. I promise. In that moment, I finally felt the weight on my chest lift. Not because I got everything back, but because I let go of the anger that had kept me prisoner for months. Robert had been right. Love wasn't weakness. It was strength, quiet, steady, forgiving strength. Days turned into weeks. Angela started helping me with chores, cooking, and repairing the garden. Sometimes we didn't talk much, but silence no longer felt painful. We were rebuilding something fragile but real. A bond that had been burned, yet somehow survived the fire. One evening, as we watched the sunset together, Angela said softly, Dad would be proud of you. Mom, I smiled. No, my dear. He would be proud of us. The orange light fell across the waves, and for the first time in a long while, peace filled my heart. I knew Robert was somewhere up there, smiling, because the woman he left behind had finally found her strength again.